For the past 2 years, Christians have found it very difficult to travel to Israel as a pilgrim. But now Israel is reopening to pilgrims much broader because you no longer have to have a vaccination to go there. Stay tuned.
Folks, Lamb Lion Ministries loves to host tours to Israel. Our founder, Dr. David Reagan's been on 45 of them. I've been on 3 myself, but Tim Moore now leads our tours to Israel. And I think it's been some good news recently because for the last 2 years, we've had to cancel our tours to Israel due to some of the most strictest COVID restrictions during those 2 years. What were some of the restrictions that Israel had if you wanted to get into Israel?
Oh, you had to be vaccinated, Nathan. You had to have a test coming in even before you arrived. Once you arrived, you could be under threat of being quarantined for up to 2 weeks, which is longer than our trip usually is. And there were many restrictions, and so essentially they shut down their entire tourism industry. We had prayed for and even tried to send support to our guides, but you can imagine the number of people that supported the millions of visitors every year, and when that flood became a trickle and then was shut off altogether, they were really in economic straits. But we are so excited to find that Israel is reopening, and so we're looking forward to taking pilgrims this year.
Okay, well, it's now 2022. You can get into Israel. If somebody wants to go on a tour with Lamb Lion Ministries to Israel, what are the restrictions that Israel has on them as of this date?
Well, the protocols are still forthcoming. And so as of the March 1st date, they announced that they would no longer require a vaccination. You can go unvaccinated. We expect that they're still going to make you have a test. In other words, to get on an airplane and travel for many, many hours in those confines, they're probably going to require that you have some kind of a negative test. But that's fairly innocuous. And then the quarantine restrictions have been lowered dramatically to where we don't think that's going to be a threat for those who actually go and experience Israel.
Are things open? I know during the quarantine, even if you could get over to Israel, there was nothing to see. The hotels were closed, the visiting sites were closed. Is everything back open again?
Yeah, I can't say everything. Somebody will find something that's not, but all the places that we would want to visit are open. And so we have talked to other groups that began to take small numbers of pilgrims, and they were able to go throughout the country. So we are excited that we can take folks back to Israel, go to all the places where Jesus walked and where you see the modern miracle of Israel, the fulfillment of Bible prophecy before our very eyes as we travel throughout the Promised Land.
What are some of your favorite places you like to take pilgrims to?
Well, I love the entire nation. There are parts of Tel Aviv, even though that's very new and modern. I like to go to Joppa because there's so many important things that happened in Joppa, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in the modern era. I love to go to the Galilee region because, of course, that's where Jesus did most of his ministering, was right there in a small swath of villages and towns around the Sea of Galilee. But I think my favorite place of all is the Mount of Olives, because not only can you look over the old city and the Temple Mount, you realize this is where Jesus is going to come back. His foot is going to be placed right there on the Mount of Olives, and all the other things that are promised in Scripture, which you got to come to hear about, will happen there on the Mount of Olives. So the first time I went, and every time I've been back, my heart just thrills to be on the Mount of Olives.
That's incredible. Well, Lamb Lion Ministries has a trip or two planned. What are the dates and how can people sign up for them?
We are going on May 14th. That is a Saturday through May 25th. There may be another trip later in the year, but if you have any interest in going, I'd encourage you to go to our website and learn more about that trip. We'll keep it updated. Right now, we still have about 25 openings, and we'd love for you to come, not next year to Jerusalem, but this year along with us to Jerusalem and the rest of Israel.
One of the questions we get a lot too is Israel safe to visit? What would you say about that?
Oh, it's very safe to visit. I tell people, we travel out of Dallas, we go through Germany, typically to change planes. We arrive in Israel, travel all around the country. There's one place I am always a little bit nervous about because the violence there is pretty heightened oftentimes. But once we get out of Dallas, the rest of the trip is just fine. No, it's a very safe place. I'll be taking my own daughters this year, and I feel more comfortable with them walking around Jerusalem alone than in our small town in Kentucky. It is that safe.
Well, folks, check us out, christinprophecy.org. Go under events and then Israel tours. All the information is there. I think you'll be excited. Going to Israel makes the Bible come alive. When you read scriptures, it's that you've been there, you've traveled there. We highly recommend it. Join us on the next Israel tour.